Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a regular meeting of council of November 16th. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:31. We'll begin the agenda with disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the previous minutes. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have the resolution?
That the minutes of the regular and special meeting of council held on November 2nd, 2023 be adopted as printed and circulated.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves, Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Next, we have a presentation or delegation from the town of Aylmer for us to consider the EECC winter maintenance contract award. I believe, Mr. Johnson, you're here with us. Just sort of looking at the screen. Yeah, I think you're there.
I am, yes.
Great. So we received your report, but happy to have you walk us through it if you could.
Certainly. First of all, good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I want to, first of all, thank the council for allowing me this opportunity to present this report tonight. As you can see from the letterhead, this should have been the EECC board report, but there was a little bit of work I wanted to do on this tender prior to issuing it, and my schedule is such that I just only recently had time to sort of put it out and get it back in. There will likely be a need for winter maintenance prior to the next board meeting in January. So I want to thank both the co-chairs, both mayors, for working together and finding a way to keep this award moving forward for me in a sort of a timely manner. As you're aware, the complex relies on contractors to provide winter maintenance. So we designed this tender to solicit pricing for the various combinations of services that we might need at the complex, some parking lots in, some parking lots out, some with salt, sand combination, and then also applied an estimated, sort of conservative estimated number of winter control events for the tender. I would point out that there is no obligation or guarantee of work for the contractor. It's truly weather dependent. We call for a service when we need it. This is a one-year season award with an opportunity for an extension for the second year. 3 bids were received and are summarized in your report. There were no bid irregularities that would warrant any disqualification, and as such, staff are recommending that we proceed with the low bid.
Great, thank you for that, and thank you also for accommodating the schedule. And we all work together to make this work. So that's great to see. I'll turn it over to council for any questions, clarifications, comments. Everything seems to be in order. So we'll proceed with the resolution then.
That the report from the town of Aylmer entitled Tender Award EECC Winter Maintenance 2023-2024 season be received, and that Malahide Council authorize $8,712.50 plus applicable taxes as the portion of the expenses to be incurred by the Township of Malahide for the EECC Winter Maintenance 2023-2024 season.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Okay, so we can move to section E, reports of department. We'll begin with Director Spoor. You have a report for the ice breaking services tender.
I do, Your Worship. This report to council with regards to our annual ice breaking tender for the 2024 winter season in Port Bruce. Through consultation with Catfish Creek Conservation Authority, Malahide Township received recommendations on specifications to best help with ice mitigation in the Port Bruce Harbor. These recommendations were inserted into the tender as preferred equipment. With limited tenders received in prior years, and difficulty in securing specific equipment. A section was also added to provide alternative equipment within the tender submission. There were 2 bidders that submitted this tender: Higgs Excavating for $56,800 and L. Simon Construction for $43,700. Higgs Construction submission included supply of a 100-foot boom and a 2-yard bucket, and L. Simon Construction was also an 80-foot boom and a 1.25-yard bucket. The cost of the tender was shown. What we show in our report includes mobilization rates, standby rates, lighting, and estimated 40 hours of operation. Last year's total expense was $27,800, with that being standby costs and mobilization costs only, as we did not require any ice breaking. If Higgs Excavating is selected, this will increase the new budget from $47,000 in 2023 to $56,800 in 2024. And this will amount to a 0.13% increase in the property tax levy. It is possible that there are more than 40 hours of operation required within the season, and the cost will go above this budget, and the council may wish to use the township's contingency reserve if needed. And I'm open to any other questions you have.
Thank you. Questions or comments, please? Councillor Leach.
Chief Spoor, are you able to give some idea about which of these booms would be able to have the best effect across the span of the waterway?
The 100-foot boom has been calculated by Catfish Creek. That's their recommended, so they can reach fully across. I think they mentioned their span across their reach they need is 110 feet to get right across.
And how thick is the ice typically when there's the experience of a ice jam?
The ice has been numerous different thicknesses through different floods. The flood in, I think, 2018, the ice was only 4 or 5 inches thick, or thinner than that even. The ice last time was definitely thicker. We had pieces that were probably up to 18 inches of thickness where the whole creek bed was frozen. And average was probably like 8 inches at the time. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through to Jeff. Jeff, in previous years, we've had a big heavy weighted ball. That helps to break through the ice because this bucket's not going to do it, in my opinion, but the ball, is that part of this contract? I'm not reading it in there. Did I miss it?
No, there's nothing on there for a ball. I've been there recently in the last 10 years or so, over the last 10 or 12 years, they've just been using the bucket itself. I think that's why they do prefer a larger bucket as well, because of the weight of it. I don't think we've ever had an issue of breaking through the ice at the channel at the time. It's been pretty steady. So.
Okay. Previously, I've seen the ball. It works really well when it's there.
Yeah.
At least they can get the slush going, right? So.
Yeah, I haven't seen them ever have any trouble breaking through the ice. I think I do remember a ball there years ago, but I don't think they've used it for several years. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Glinski.
Mayor Jaguar, the tender called for 3-yard bucket, and we're getting a 2-yard bucket. Is the 2-yard bucket going to do it?
Councillor Glindsey, the 2-yard bucket was confirmed through Catfish Creek. They had wrote a 3-yard bucket in their original letter to us, but they did confirm, because they did change it, and they did confirm it was a 2-yard bucket. It was just a typo.
And that's good enough to do the job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is aligned with the recommendations then. Okay, good.
I do have email confirmation from them that they said 2-yard correction.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. Okay. So that seems to have gone a little more smoothly this year with good collaboration again. So that's good news. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Glinski.
Mayor Jaguar, will there be a long arm backhoe on standby somewhere in case we do need more than one spot to be looked at the same time?
Through your worship, we do have equipment on standby through Public Works that are contractors that are certified contractors, so we are able to call at any time. So for loaders, other heavy equipment or anything like that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's proceed with the resolution.
That report number F 23-08 entitled Emergency Management Ice Breaking Services be received, and that Malahide Township accept the quotation submitted by Higgs Excavating to proceed ice breaking services in Port Bruce from January first to March 31st, 2024. And that council of the Township of Malahide delegate authorities to staff to enter into an ice breaking contract with Higgs Excavating for 2024.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Glinski seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Great. Thank you, Director Spore. We'll move to Director of Public Works. Couple of reports this evening, starting with the Malahide Water Distribution System, the MECP inspection for 2023.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council, this report, PW 2359, is our Malahide Water Distribution System inspection for 2023. If you look at this, it is 26 pages long that basically is confirming that our water operations staff and Aqua, being the operating authority for the township, has been checking all the boxes and doing everything that they're supposed to do. So it's a good news story. We actually received a compliance score of 100% on this. So really there's a lot of information there that it needs to be public. So that is the primary purpose of this report. Beyond that, if there are any other questions or concerns, please feel free to ask, and I will do my best to answer them for you.
Thank you. Counselor Wilson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd like to extend, I guess, kudos to the staff for 100% compliance. It's well, reading through all of it, it's a lot of boxes checked, and that's great that they're on top of stuff that much.
Yep. When it comes to water, you probably wouldn't want anything less than 100%. So it is good to see and have confidence in the system. Any further questions or comments? Counselor Cerna?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This isn't the first time we scored 100%. This has been going on year after year after year. I don't know how many years in a row, but we've done well. I don't know. It's what, 5, 6, 7 years in a row. It's so it's quite something for these guys. So pat them on the back for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can we have the resolution, please?
The report number PW 2359 entitled Malahide Water Distribution System 2023 MECP inspection be received.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves, Counselor Cerna seconds, all in favor? That's carried. And your second report is a petition for drainage, Wagler petition.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council, PW 23-60, the petition for drainage, the Wagler petition. If you quickly scoot to page 51 of your agenda package, you'll see an overview of the site. Essentially, the property at 9600 Walker Road is currently being proposed for some additional development as part of that site plan agreement. They do require a legal and adequate outlet for their water, for their storm drainage. So this petition is to meet that condition, and in order to provide drainage of the site. The reason that we have chose CJDL as the engineer for this project is they are also completing the on-site works. So what we get is one engineer who's going to basically be able to expedite this process as best as possible in order to get that work done. So if there are any questions or concerns, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions, comments? A straightforward application. Clerk Adams, may I have the resolution, please?
Report number PW 2360 entitled Petition for Drainage Wagler petition be received and that Peter Penner of Cyril Meyer Limited be appointed to prepare an engineer's report for Wagler petition pursuant to Section 4 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Gombe. We'll move on to the community grant request. The Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer, Mr. Boylan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report provides a list of our 2024 community grant requests to be considered during our 2024 budget deliberations in January. So prior to deliberations, I thought it would be prudent for council to consider whether it wants to alter the process prior to getting to budget deliberations in relation to the community grants process. So in the interest of giving council greater access to the applications themselves and coordinating a review amongst staff, what I'm recommending in this report is the creation of a new committee, a committee called the Community Grants Committee, which would be comprised of 3 council members along with staff to be determined. The purpose of the committee would be to review the 2024 community grant applications for 2024 and then make recommendations later for budget deliberations. And then later in 2024, the committee would consider the policy and process itself, perhaps making recommendations that would advance the township strategic plan. So I've provided a draft terms of reference for your consideration. Again, if approved, we'd be looking for 3 members to be elected tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up for discussion, and I want to clarify also, or just add that the intent is definitely to allow us to work more closely with the community groups. And I think that's what we heard through the strategic planning process, that we want to be more informed. We want to have more exchange of information. We're in the past, we've stayed a little bit at the surface, and who knows if the committee can be able to add more context to the application. Sometimes we may find additional ways to partner in addition to funding, and it's just so it's not, I just want to make sure it's interpreted as not more scrutiny, but more partnering and more of working closely together. Any further comments? Volunteers for the committee? That part is less optional for this evening, if we want to go ahead with the committee. Counselor Wilson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm not against the recommendation, but we're also looking at a dozen or so things. It wouldn't take that long for all the council to go through it. So I'm not against having a committee, but having a committee for something that maybe doesn't require a lot more than just going through it amongst us. I'm not against it, but I'm not
Right.
sure what the advantage is. So.
Right. Director Borland, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you. So the applications themselves are quite extensive, and I think doing it in open council is certainly a possibility, but maybe there would be members of council that would not want to go through such a thorough process. The other side of it being sometimes part of the review is assessing the financial capacity of an organization, and that is typically not, it's better done with staff, not in an open format. Part of the process requires them to submit financial statements. So presumably if the committee were wanting an interpretation of an organization's financial statements, I'd be providing it to them. That being said, there's no need for council to change anything about the community grants process. This is just an option I'm providing to council prior to budget deliberation, so you don't feel pressured at the time to go through a process that you may not support.
Counselor Cerna.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. So you make a committee to think about the grants or talk about the grants. But ultimately, the entire council has to approve it, correct? So it's gonna come up for discussion anyways.
Yes, as it should. The committee would essentially be doing the legwork for council so that when we get to budget deliberations and we're talking about should organization ABC be getting this, what do we know about the application? We'd have members who have thoroughly vetted the applications and can to speak to various aspects. And maybe members of the committee would want more information about an application, and that coordinates a dialogue with the requesting organizations that members would find useful. That's hard to do if I'm just bringing them to you for budget deliberations, right? You kind of get what you get, and there's no opportunity to have that dialogue because we have to pass budget.
It's a process we use at the county level and other municipalities. It allows for more fulsome discussions and as Director Boylan described, but absolutely, the committee makes a recommendation to council and council has a final decision. Yeah. Councillor Cerna.
But I'm confused because the information we're trying to hide or we don't want to come out in public will eventually have to come out in public, because I might question why this group A wants twice as much money, and somebody's gonna have to explain it to me as to why. We can't just say, well, the committee said it's okay. I want to know why, and it's gonna have to come out in public. So we're like Councillor Wilson said, we're no further ahead trying to vet it earlier, because the information is gonna have to come out somehow if somebody questions it. Correct?
Yeah, and I would say it's less about separating information. I think it's more about the legwork. It's more hands-on, it's more in-depth discussions than we typically would have around a full council table. So it's similar to the other committees that we have around equipment, where we don't have all of council sitting with staff and going over, detailed information. So it's it's sort of a two-stage process, and the same with interview committees where 2 or 3 counselors are invited to do more of the legwork and then recommend. So, yeah. Right. Exactly.
I know I'm making the right decision.
So we'll put you on this committee then. Yeah.
That's right.
Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Looking through this list, it looks like half of them are the same as last year anyway, so either way, it's not gonna be that big a deal. The owner is a task, but are we adding another level of bureaucracy? I don't know. We've done this way forever. We just sit around the table, yes, no, whatever, but it's a council decision, but there's a lot of changes in a lot of these, so. Thank you.
Councilor Kalinsky.
Mayor Shigier, looking at the Aylmer Cemetery Board at 18, the cemetery is a joint venture with Aylmer, and Aylmer is supposed to be putting in the same amount of money as we are. Although if you go back through the books, Aylmer is probably quite a bit behind us. However, they have been better in recent history. However, I read in the paper that their donation to the cemetery board this year will be 0 because they don't think there's a need. So that's just back to Aylmer being what they were before I came on board, because they've been very good in the time that I've been on the board. However, now we're looking at a 0 from Aylmer and 18 from Malahide. It should be the same amount from both, and of course it is the Aylmer Cemetery Board and Malahide Cemetery Board. So maybe the committee has some work to do right now, is to twist somebody's arm and say, well, are you going to carry your half of the load, or is Malahide going to have to carry your half along with ours? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of the kind of more in-depth back and forth discussions. I think the staff recommendation is based on previous, maybe the last couple of years, I recall, we received the information. It felt a little bit incomplete. So we went back, asked staff to seek information. We invited a couple of groups for presentations. So this, all of that back and forth and discussions and seeking more information or explanations could happen sort of not offline, but just as a separate process that is a little bit less cumbersome than having that in the formal format of council meeting. So I think that was a perfect example. Councillor Lewis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, for concerns exactly like that, I would support a committee. Because I'm just curious, Adam, what's $60,000 in a percentage wise on taxes? What's 60,000? Just a ball diamond. Yeah, 0.5%, 0.75%. So we're giving away 0.75% of our constituents' money. I think I would volunteer to be on a committee to do that job.
Councillor Cerna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just further to Councillor Glinski's comments, we have to remember if Elmer backs out of the cemetery, that the cemetery is in Malahide Township. So if the cemetery runs into financial difficulty, it becomes our responsibility and we have to take it over. Just like every other cemetery that goes under. So I think that's why Elmer's figuring the hell with it. Let Malahide look after it. So we have to really push on it, you know, and here they're talking about putting a pool at the complex, but the hell with the cemetery. So we can go
that's-
swimming,
we
but
don't
we
know
can't,
that. Yeah.
we can't bury somebody. So
So
I'm on the
that's-
cemetery board, so I think the next meeting, I'm gonna bring up the fact that if you're an Elmer counselor, you better go somewhere else to look for a final resting place, because we're not gonna bury you in Elmer. Thank you.
So that's, again, the kind of clarification, like we can speculate, that's probably not a healthy thing to do. We can try to read their thinking, but I think instead of having a conversation through a committee process will allow for that. So. Okay, so we have two. And I will volunteer to be the third, since I know I have been a voice who said I would like this decision to be a little bit, feel a little bit less arbitrary and a bit more informed. I was waiting to see who else was going to be on the committee. So that's potential 3 members. So the recommendation would be to go ahead with the committee and Councillor Lewis, Councillor Cerna, and myself as members working with staff. Any questions or comments, further questions or comments? Councillor Glinski.
Mayor Shiger, in years gone by, the cemetery board, which I was on for about 19 years on the board, had to come to the councils of Aylmer and Malahide and make a presentation as to why they need the grant that they're getting. And it's been a while since they've showed darken our doorstep here, and I think maybe it's time that if they have good reason for getting the grant, which I do believe they probably do, they should come and make a presentation both here and in Aylmer, and that would kind of soothe the situation. And then we could see whether we're going to throw in our 18 or put it back in the kitty. Thank you.
We'll take that suggestion to the committee. See how we want to proceed on that. Any further questions or comments then on what is proposed as a resolution for this evening? Clerk Adams.
The report FIN 23-16 entitled 2024 Community Grant Requests be received for information, and that the appointment of 3 members of council to the Community Grants Committee be included to the Community Appointment Bylaw.
May I have a mover and seconder? Counselor Leach moves, Counselor Wilson seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Director Boylan. We'll move to building planning bylaw. We have Mr. Steele with us for the application for consent to sever. Yes, he is with us. You can hear us and see us okay? But I don't think we can hear you yet.
Be able to hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Turn it over to you for an overview of the application, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before council tonight is a consent application for 52773 Chalet Line. The application has been submitted for the purpose of facilitating a lot boundary adjustment between the subject property and the property or the adjacent farm property to the south. The subject property is approximately 43 hectares in size, and the owner is proposing to sever an area approximately 35 hectares and convey it to the neighboring farm parcel to the south, with the retained parcel being area approximately 7.4 hectares. Based on the information provided, the farmer to the south continue to farm the proposed severed parcel as part of their operation. The retained lands would continue to be used with these existing single detached dwelling and accessory buildings, as well as a proposed 4-acre tree farm. Provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Malahide official plan all permit lot adjustments subject to certain criteria. And this includes being for legal or technical reasons, such as a minor lot boundary adjustment. The viability of the lots as agricultural or for agricultural uses are not affected as a result of the application. That the proposed size of parcels are sufficiently large enough to permit making changes and flexibility to farming uses in the future, and that both remain viable agricultural units and they comply with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So the retained parcels proposed to be an area of approximately 7.4 hectares in size, as being comparison to the minimum lot area requirements of 40 hectares and 20 hectares respectively for the A3 and A1 zones, which are the two primary agricultural zones in the municipality. Additionally, the size will also be differentiated or quite smaller compared to most farm parcels located in the surrounding area. And so there's a question of concern of the proposed retained lot would not be of a size to be able to remain viable for a long-term range of agricultural uses. Additionally, that the subject lands being approximately 43 hectares and that conveying approximately 35 hectares or 80% of the subject lands would be considered too large to be considered a minor boundary adjustment under these requirements. And finally, that while consolidating farm parcels can support agricultural uses, in this instance, maybe greater utility and viability in having two large farm parcels compared to one very large parcel, and essentially a lot that may begin to function as an oversized estate lot. And so based on the review of applicable planning policies, staff will recommend the application not be supported. That's bring forward to the Land Division Committee for its consideration. I would note that as part of the agenda package, while staff are not recommending approval, let's note that recommended conditions have been provided should the application receive approval by Land Division Committee. And that concludes my presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you. I'll turn it over to council for discussions or questions. Councilor Glinski.
Mayor Jaguar, I took a trip yesterday and I looked at the land and the situation there. And I don't see any reason why this should not be allowed. The large area in red on page, wherever it disappeared to, page 62, it makes sense for it to be added to the property to the south where it is being farmed. Because if you look at that picture, there's only a narrow strip joining the two. And you could barely drive a combine, if you even could drive a combine through that area. So I hope you did go and have a look, because the north part the 18 acres has been neatly planted in trees already, and it might be noted as agriculture. It certainly is not agricultural land that you're going to put a plow in. And I'm not sure whether ANSI had anything to do with some of the tree planting, but I'm sure that they would have something to say about anyone trying to remove those trees. I think the conveyance is a good idea, and that is how I'm going to vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Further comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I also walked the property today, had a tour from Bert. That was good. I mean, the laneway's got nothing to do with the situation. We figured that out. So it's out of the equations in the report, but that's nothing to do with it now, because what he wants to sever off is just the front parts. A lot of gully, a lot of scrub, not a lot of arable land, if any. So I don't have any problem supporting. After you look at it, I think it makes sense. When you read a report, I wasn't sure, so I went and actually did it on site, and I could see severing this off. I guess it'd be up to land division where they'd let this fly or not, but I'm going to support this anyway. Thank you.
Councilor Cerna?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm kind of an expert on this because that chunk on the corner, Carter Road and Chalet Line, was in my family since 1938. Okay. Bert and Chris have been my neighbors since Moby Dick was a minnow. Bert and Krista had one tobacco field that wasn't surrounded by a gully. Everything else that they have farmed their entire lives has a gully either on the north, south, or west. No, on the east. Yeah. And I had what we called a suicide field up there by where the red and green are. You can even see the gully. And I called it my suicide field. And that's where the driveway was. And that's where the gully starts. Or his gully, because I had a gully pond, and on the other side of the driveway, wow, it's like 250-foot drop. And there's not a place you could put a lot. No, there's nobody crazy enough to even look at it. He could want to sell a lot for $10. Nobody in the world's going to buy it. Okay. It's crazy. And there's nothing wrong with what they want to do. And to call it a tree farm, unbelievable. All he's done is taken land that is not farmable. And I remember behind the barn, his daughter used to raise rescue horses, believe it or not. And when she was done doing that, he plowed up that little pasture, planted trees. When he got out of tobacco, he had a 200-foot greenhouse by 40 feet, worked it up, planted trees. Down the road, little chunk of ground, couldn't get in there with equipment, planted trees. I even told Bert one time, it's more of an environmental thing, that when he died, I wasn't going to make a donation anywhere. I was going to plant a tree. I have just a sumac tree picked out for him. So it's not a tree farm. It's an environmental thing. So, I mean, I'm going to support it, not because he was my neighbor or anything. It's just, it's common sense. And I can't see a problem doing it. So that's it's gully, it's junk land. And he's trying to do something with it. He's more of an environmentalist than anything else. So I'm going to support it, and that's how I'm going to vote.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, it's a good example where, you know, from a technical basis that, yeah, I can see the recommendation from Mr. Steele, that when you add context is everything, right? And,
I lived by it for 30 years.
Yep. So it just puts it in perspective. So appreciate those comments. Councilor Glinsky, did you want to add anything?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think we have to be, when we say we support, Because if we support it, we're supporting that this isn't allowed. So we've got to make sure that we have it stated in such a way so that we do get what we want. And I think the consensus here appears to be that the conveyance be allowed, and that's what we're supporting, not Mr. Steele's comments.
Thank you for clarifying. Councillor Leach.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Steele, what is the precedent that we would be creating if we support Mr. Brower?
For your worship, for planning applications, staff do review each application based on their own merits. I know, I guess in the case of future severance applications, a matter of distinguishing the difference between other applications that may propose something similar, and this instance and that context as noted, staff review applications based on typical planning policies and meet those criteria. So just in the for future references that the council review for their decisions would be the matter of looking at the context of how those cases may be different from this to distinguish them.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Blinsky.
We have, as a council, made many concessions to people in that area that gets us away from the 50-acre block of land in order to have it severed. With the Amish situation, many of their farms, many of their situations, we supported them, and the blocks of land were not 50 acres in size as land division or provincial policy statement wants it to be. So as far as precedents, I think we've set the precedents a long time ago. We do what we think is right. Sorry, Sarah. Thank you.
It's important to consider, and then to also then remind ourselves that it's on a case by case, and every application is looked on their own individual merit. Clerk Adams, you have a resolution that would reflect the discussion?
Okay, so I'm going to read what we're recommending, and then you can defeat or vote how you prefer. That report number DS 2332 entitled Application for Consent to Sever number E 7623 of Burt Brower be received, and that the application for consent to sever E 7623 of Burt Brower relating to the property located at concession 5, part of lot 32, 33, and 33 of Malahide, and known municipally as 52773 Chalet Line, not be supported for the reasons set out in this report, and that this report be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
So we'll consider the initial resolution. As you said, we can support it or defeat it, but we'll start with a mover and seconder, so we can dispose of it. Councillor Wilson moves. Councillor Lewis seconds. Those in favor? And those opposed? Correct. So those opposed to not supporting the application, and then we'll do it in 2 stages. So opposed? So you're opposing the recommendation from staff. The recommendation from staff was to not support this application. So, well, okay. So the resolution is to support the recommendation of staff, which is to not support the application. So those in favor, I don't see any hands. Those opposed? And that's carried. So now we'll proceed with another motion.
The report number DS 2332 entitled Application for Consent to Sever number E 7623 of Burt Brower be received, and that the application for consent to sever E 7623 of Burt Brower relating to the property located at concession 5, part of lot 31, 32, and 33 Malahide, and known municipally as 52773 Chalet Line, be supported for the reasons set out in this report, and that this report and recommended conditions be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Whitner moves, Counselor Wilson second. All in- to move ahead. Yes. So everyone in favor of supporting the application? Yes. And that's, anyone opposed? It's not a recorded vote. We have enough votes to carry it, so carried it is. Thank you for being here this evening. Okay, next on the agenda is reports of committees and outside boards. I believe we only have the report from the Long Point Conservation Authority. Do you want a resolution or any comments or questions on that? Seeing none, the resolution.
That the following reports of committees and outside boards be noted and filed. Long Point Region Conservation Authority, minutes of October 4th, 2023.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Cerna moves. Counselor Lewis seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. And I've got to thank Mr. Steele and wish him a good evening. So if you still hear us, thank you for your report. We'll proceed to correspondence. There are 5 items. Any questions or comments, endorsements? Seeing none, Clerk Adams,
That the following correspondence be noted and filed.
mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Whitner moves, Counselor Blinsky seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Under other business, we have the Springfield Santa Claus Parade request letter. Any comments or questions on that? I think there's general support to proceed. We have a resolution.
That the Springfield Santa Claus Parade Committee requests to facilitate the Springfield Santa Claus Parade be authorized to be held on Saturday, December 2nd, 2023 at 1 o'clock. And that a copy of this resolution and request from the Springfield Santa Claus Parade Committee be forwarded to the County of Elgin for their information. And that the clerk be authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with the County of Elgin to permit the temporary closure of Ron McNeil Line within the Village of Springfield on December 2nd, 2023 to facilitate the parade.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Wilson moves, Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Hope to see everyone there. Any other business? That's right. Any other business? Seeing none. We don't have any bylaws. We do not have any closed session items. We'll proceed with confirmatory bylaw.
That bylaw number 2376 being a confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third readings and properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Cerna moves. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That's carried. And adjournment.
The council adjourns its meeting at 8:18 PM to meet again on December 7th, 2023 at 7:30.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Whitner, Deputy Mayor Whitner. I know. Deputy Mayor Whitner moves. We need a seconder to adjourn, otherwise we'll be here to Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That's carried.